Hello and welcome back to Belmont Bunch again. Today we're going to talk about the Canucks and Minnesota series, the 7 versus the 10 on Belmont Bunch on this episode. So here we go. All right, so in this 7v10 matchup out in the Western qualifiers, we have two teams that they're a little bit different. The Canucks have a very, 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 very solid top two lines. Going out and getting Toffoli and getting Pearson. Sorry, they already had Pearson. Getting Miller in the offseason. That gambit worked off. What did I just say? Miller coming in from Tampa for a first-round pick and more. Worked out pretty well for the Canucks, who were looking like a pretty decent shot, pretty good odds to make the regular playoffs. A little bit deeper than what we looked at in Winnipeg and Calgary, in that the bottom six has a little bit more there. Ferland sounds like he'll be back, so he could take the spot of McCune. You've got Levo, who's played decently for them. Maybe comes in for Mott. Virtanen probably stays in because he's done a pretty great job this year. And once again, these lines come from daily faceoff. And yeah, Virtanen's been very, very solid. The top six, Horvat and Pettersson, is a fantastic 1-2 punch. That's about as good a 1-2 punch as you could hope for. I know the Capitals too, and the Penguins. Yes, I know. Horvat, just a very steady player, very consistent with his production. Pettersson, more about the flash. He's able to he's got a Barzal-like game. I'm sorry, I liken everything to the Islanders. It's just easier. Toffoli, great addition as a scorer to finish off for Pettersson and Miller's playmaking abilities. You've got Pearson, who's fit pretty well into Vancouver after escaping the Kings. And Besser, obviously injuries have been hampering him over the last year and a half or so. But when you have the ability to play with either Horvat or Pettersson, it can help revitalize yourself. So Besser, be interesting to see how he does. Now, the bottom six, like I said, Virtanen's pretty good. Decent production out of Gaudette. So it's okay. It's not an awful bottom six, especially if you get Ferland and Levo back into there and you have a pretty well-rounded offensive lineup. Defensively, pretty solid too. As you can see, for the goals for the offense, pretty solid bunch this year. Defense, the defensive ability has been Scoring's been up this year, so 310 isn't quite awful. Hughes obviously is a fantastic, new age defenseman. The Nick Leddy type. There I go again with the comparisons. Quick puck mover. Quick with the puck on his stick. Great with zone entries. Ton of assists this year. Him and Cale Makar were I would have been fine with either of them winning the Calder. They were both absolutely fantastic. You've got Tanev as a good pairing for him. Experience, bigger guy. Get a little bit of best of both worlds on that line. You get the quick young guy with a spring in the step and the older stay-at-home more type of defenseman. Edler and Stetcher, decent middle pair. Not exactly looking for points to Stetcher. Myers has come over on a contract that looked kind of suspect over the summer and played pretty decently. Yeah, and then you got Oscar Fantenberg. I just wanted to say his name. Don't really have much to say about him. Goalies. Louis Domingue is the backup to Thatcher Demko. That being because Jacob Markstrom is still a question mark due to his injury near the pause. And Demko, obviously, all the talent in the world. Everybody has talked about the potential that he has. And it's not quite been there yet. He's a fine backup at the moment. That's a big part of this series. Is if Markstrom plays, the Canucks look pretty solid to move on to the playoffs. Demko puts it a little bit more in the air. At least they have another NHL experienced goalie in Domingue, because in the playoffs you never know who's going to get hot, and it just helps to have some NHL experience between the pipes. So that'll be interesting. But for now, I guess we're assuming Demko is in net. That being said, let's talk about their strengths and weaknesses. Good offense, as I said. Okay-ish defense. The goaltending will be middle of the road without Markstrom. The power play, very good. Penalty kill, fine. So, yeah, they're a good team. That's why they were the 7th seed. The Wild. I don't have a Canucks jersey. That's why I'm wearing the Wild. So, you have more of a... I'm not going to say more well-rounded, because the Canucks lineup is pretty well-rounded offensively. The forward group for the Wild they've squeezed a lot out of a little. They've had some young guys that they've needed to step up, Greenway, Cunnin, Erikssone-ek, and they've done a decent job. You've got Donato on the 4th line with like 14 goals. Foligno is doing all right. Galchenyuk, is he ever going to be the 30-goal scorer again? I don't think so. A few years ago, I really wanted him as an Islander. It's tough. It's been tough for him. You've got Zook on that 3rd line. He's been pretty productive. Obviously, he brings some playoff prestige, some playoff experience. And Kevin Fiala, absolutely fantastic this year. What a turnaround for him. Really fun to see. You've got Eric Stahl, stalwart for this team. But the real strength comes in the defense. The blue line. Suter, Spurgeon, Brodin, Dumba. Top 4. Really, really good. Offensive. Here comes my brother. Hi. Suter, Spurgeon, Brodin, Dumba. That's where I was. Very, very, very solid top 4. Suter getting up there in age. Still producing pretty well point-wise. Spurgeon, similar, but younger. So, just good point producer. Dumba, obviously, he was being floated as trade bait close to the deadline. And then the Wild woke up. And you don't want to trade Matt Dumba. You don't want to do that unless you get a lot back. So, good to see him succeeding. Brad Hunt was very productive for a 3rd-pairing defenseman. So I'll give him credit there. Not a lot of injuries, as you can see. So the Wild going in pretty healthy. We'll see. A little bit of old. A little bit of new. Sorry, not Parise. A little bit of old. A little bit of new in this lineup. Good combination of experience and youth. Goaltending situation could be the downfall. I have Dubnyk listed first, but Stalock's really the starter. This year his numbers were so much better, so I'm pretty sure he's going to start in goal. To start, be interesting to see in a best of 5 instead of a best of 7 how quickly a goalie, how easily they could lose their starting position with one bad game, or one bad game and the start of another bad game. So yes, let's look at their stats. Goals for, just ahead of goals against. Power play, pretty good. Penalty kill, not great. Goaltending, not great. So I'm going to do what I did for the other series. Look at the 3 areas. Forwards, Canucks. The Wild can roll 4 lines, which is important and can mitigate the advantage to the Canucks in star power. But the Canucks, you can't say that they don't have a pretty well-rounded top 9. Especially, mostly I'm saying if Furlan's in there. So there's experience, there's flash, there's goal-scoring ability. So, good stuff from the Canucks there. Defensively, I think you'd say the Wild have a slight edge, their numbers being so close. Just that top 4 is fantastic. The Canucks top 4 is not bad. And you could argue that having Myers on the bottom pairing shows a good amount of depth because he'd been playing fine. But I'm going to go with, Wild for defense, goaltending. Oh, it's close. Goaltending, Stalock's numbers are better than Demko this year. I'm actually going to go with the Wild in net, which is kind of surprising. Yeah, so we had forward Canucks, defense Wild, goaltending slight Wild. Despite having only one of the three categories, that is not the end-all be-all of decision-making. And I am going to go with the Canucks, probably also in 5. The center depth. Now, the depth here is pretty decent across the 4, but the ceiling for that Horvat-Pettersson combo is pretty high. And that's what you're shooting for in the playoffs. Well, not always. You see some teams roll 4 lines and tire out the other team. But the Canucks don't have not a super weak bottom 6. So, yeah. So we're going to go with the Canucks in 5. That is the end of the video.
What are you talking about?
The Wild and the Canucks series.
Canucks in... Is this best of 5?
Best of 5.
Canucks in 5.
All right.